Hello. So after successful playlist with Terraform and the live stream, which went pretty well Friday, and we ended the Terraform live stream and the Terraform playlist, and today we're going to start a new playlist. So every week we're going to have new technologies, new methodologies, new exercises, new playgrounds that we are going to learn and study and work with them. So for today and for the new playlist and for this week, we are going to work with Kubernetes. We're gonna have like an explanation about what Kubernetes does and what it do and how we can explain it to at least non-IT people and or to beginners that what Kubernetes does. So this is the official Kubernetes documentation that I really suggest for everyone to take a look at the Kubernetes its own documentation and not to check other posts because the official one gets updated almost every from the new update that the DigitalOcean make or someone makes some changes and blah blah. Yeah, the Linux Foundation. I thought it was DigitalOcean, but anyways. So we already know about what Terraform is and we can create with the our infrastructure, what kind of resources, providers, and all of those stuff. And this is usually with Kubernetes we have it with like a keyword that is like this K and 8. And this is called Kubernetes, and that 8 stands for 8 letters that Kubernetes has for. So if you count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 without the K, and that's why it is for short Kubernetes, and also with an S, sometimes with an S in the end. And yeah, this is like small historical, which I don't. It's not worth it. It's from a Greek word, meaning helpsman or a pilot. Uh, and it was a small project from Google. It was an open source project before, but lately everyone in the community liked it and they try to add more stuff into it. And as always, is a good product. It goes to somewhere, to some companies. Yeah, the Linux Foundation is not. Yeah, it will. Some people agree with it, some people do not. So, but I do not agree with it. If you create an open source product, then keep it open source. Not need to put it private and benefit from it. What our community is doing it. And yeah, so with Kubernetes, the first thing the first item or the first word that comes to mind when someone mentions Kubernetes, for you, it should be containers. So what Kubernetes does in short is just it handles the containers for you. So if you want to in your local machine, you send up a Docker container, right? And okay, you set up one, two, three, four, but it's your PC. Even while you might have the latest Mac M4 Pro Max with 40 gigabyte of RAM and the maximum GPU, it will come a time or a stop where you cannot create or stand up more container apps or more container in your device. That's why we have the Kubernetes clusters that will help us for this kind of issue, for this kind of steps and this kind of methodologies that we are going to use for our infrastructure and how not to break them. So in this documentation, it helps like a lot what it is and what it is not. So was traditional deployment before, how it was on hardware of the OS and the application. But later on in the 2010s, you were using the Hyper-Vs and or virtualized deployments. So the same as traditional, but in the application line, you had now VMs running into it. And with container deployment, this become a bit more easy because we remove the operating system from the VMs. So as you can see here, the other thing different is we are not using the Hyper-V, we are using container runtime as a runtime for our application, and instead we take the operating system on where we are running that cluster in. But I mean, come on, who is using Windows for in Kubernetes? Is it true though? Use in Kubernetes. Yeah, and of course it supports it, but I've never heard or seen any other companies using was a trial by fire. Yeah. Green string from Windows, this is for the other settings not selected. Yeah, I mean, even Windows, even Microsoft uses Linux to run their servers. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty weird for some companies or so some engineers to use Windows as an operating system, but it depends from your scenarios and what you need for those. And yeah, tell me, this is the evolution. I mean, there of course there are even more. Every day is adding more stuff, upgrading, and it's the new technologies rising up, and people are adding more stuff into it and stuff like that. But there is a really nice saying about Kubernetes. That okay, it's actually two. The first one is the open source platform that automates Linux container operations. So that is the first quote, and the second quote that I really like, but I don't remember really well where I've read it from, is that remember you are at the container on the port. So let's go into Albania, for example. In Duros, you have the port of that place, and those ships they put those containers somewhere, right? And but there is someone who is getting the containers from the ship to the land all the time. Is setting it up, is making the places, is organizing the all the containers there. It has some workers who also clean the place, or with some workers who tell the that guy to lower here or lower there. And also it has a manager, which is a node, a special node, which is a manager that checks all of its operation and jobs. So this is like, let's say, a bit of an Apple with peers case with how you can illustrate Kubernetes a little bit. But this is really useful for beginners and how you can at least explain Kubernetes in the most easiest way as possible. So yeah, so I think if you, yeah, I think you 100% you get the idea with the port now, what the Kubernetes does and what it is. So Kubernetes is that guy, is the whole process that takes it's not the ship. The ship is the container registry, but that's gonna be for another tutorial, probably tomorrow. And let's leave the ship. So we are only on the land, where the crane picks up the container from the ship and puts it into the land with all its own processes, management, and the workers, and also you get some files which are called YAML. It will tell the worker that okay, I go here and go there, and tell the workers what to do also. So this is like the best way how you can also explain Kubernetes to the others, which is the most easiest. How you can explain to non-IT people how Kubernetes work. So the containers, they are similar, almost the same as virtual machines, but in this case, in Kubernetes, they're a bit more relaxed, so they have more advantages. So they say it's more agile, you have more CI, DevOps will separate between dev and ops, they're separated. Observability, you have more logs. Environmental consistency for the development, UNT production. cloud distribution, which is must be the same. Non-centric management, yeah, loosely coupled for microservices, resource isolation, and resource utilization. So high efficiency and density. So in Kubernetes, it helps us a lot. This is like a high-level overview, how you have the control plane and the node and the kubelet, key proxy as our node, and we have our workers over here. So when I was explaining with that let's say that example earlier about how the Kubernetes process works, this is like a best diagram with its own components and how it works. This is like a true classic Kubernetes diagram and how you can understand with it with its own API, CM, scheduler, also the other node processes. Uh, yeah. Also, it has some other comments really useful. Let's say plugins with Terraform that we are going to learn in the other tutorials. But for today, wow, 11 minutes. It went so fast. So here you have the, let's say, the API server. We have the CCMM, which is for stands for Control Cloud Controller Manager, Control Manager for CM. Here, etcd, which is the persistent store. So if you go to example to any to the Kubernetes machine, you'll see here. Hold on, sorry. You have a lot of ethnicity in this case. So this is like where most of the important part of your hosts are saved and what you can do with that. So this is like persistent storage, and you have the kubelet, the node processing, the queue proxy, which is also a process, a scheduler, which is always on the control plane, and yeah, here this amount here a table are just nodes. Uh, so yeah, it's not uh, like this. So this is like a great example how you can have an overview about Kubernetes in the most technical way. But again, this is an eye level. And this is just an example. Kubernetes, of course, you can do a lot of stuff with it. You can expand this image even further, or keep it as in the as it is, because this is still workable. This is doable, and everyone can finish the job with it. Kube API server, flexibility in architecture. Yeah, this is a really good on Kubernetes. That's why we use it for in our architecture, because it gives us more flexibility, and it is makes our life easier. How we're going to automate the deployments and how we are going to manage it. And this can be done even for small teams and even to the larger teams, because if you see here in the diagram, this is like a typical small project, but it's still doable for a small company or a perfect IT company. And this is the best example how you can create your, let's say, your infrastructure. And yeah, I mean, sorry, it's time goes by so fast, but I really wanted to explain the Kube API server, which is one of the most component, let's say, options that we need to. This is like the the core of the Kubernetes side. So this is like a typical cluster as we have. How can we explain that in cluster, which is like inside of your resource group. So imagine your cluster is like everything that you put inside of the resource group. That's like a cluster thing. But in this cluster, we're going to put our own Kubernetes infrastructure, and here we have the Cloud Control Manager, we have the etcd Kube API server, which is one of the most important components, a scheduler, which is really needed sometimes. Yeah, it's needed. Of course, that's how you're going to pull the information. And the controller manager, which is the manager who checks the job. And of course, we need the node processes all the time because they seem like they do not do much, but they are the most important components also here in Kubernetes world. And oh yeah, the documentation also explains what this diagram represents, and on this each node it runs a kube proxy component, and we need a network proxy component on each node to ensure the service API and associated behaviors are available on your cluster network. However, some network plugins provide their own third-party implementation of proxying. Only does need to run kube proxy, okay. And yeah, this you see there a lot, and it doesn't make sense to leave it in the middle because I have only 4 minutes left. And yeah, this is like mainly about the an overview of the Kubernetes. Why do we need them? Why do we use it? And like small diagrams and the best example of how we can explain Kubernetes to someone else who is not non-IT related or anything like that. Yeah. So see you to the next one.